We've got some interesting stuff to talk about. Communication changes.
Yes.
Before we even dive into it, I need people to understand. You've been at LifePoint since the beginning, sort of.
Yeah.
You've seen it all in terms of how we've tried to communicate with people.
Logos.
Connect cards
and
access guides, bulletins, everything.
Yeah, the access guide was the original.
Right.
Which was a little, I just found it the other day again, and I pulled it out.
Like a little booklet /
It was a card stock, and we kind of imprinted, and you printed the whole thing on a press.
Right.
And then we made copies with the, black ink. With a copier. I had to run, and it was cardstock. Yeah. And it's the access guide, because this is the guide to access everything.
Exactly.
That was the whole idea, which basically we said, in other words, your bulletin. Your bulletin.
But see, my point is, that was back in 2002.
Yeah.
When the church started.
Yeah.
You were employed.
2001.
2000. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. You were employed by LifePoint back then.
Right.
Then not in 2000, well, in the middle of 2003, you were let go.
That's a whole nother podcast.
I was not the boss then. Yeah. I don't want to go into that. But then for a long time, you were just doing communications for lots of churches. That was your thing. And in a lot of ways, in the sort of that social media space.
Yeah, for 10 years.
Yeah.
Living in the design world, which I had always done design work. So design had always been a part of it, but it came to the forefront during a time which was when Facebook, a lot of these even social media communication, ways of communicating came into play.
Right. This is what I'm trying to establish. Number one, your sort of communication background. Number two, the length of time that you've been doing it and we've been doing it. And then the strange reality that when LifePoint started in 2001, the internet was like 6 years old.
Yeah.
There was no Facebook.
No.
There was no Instagram.
No.
There wasn't even texting.
No.
I mean, texting showed up, I think, in 2004, 2005. So my whole point is, as we jump into this discussion about how we're about to make some communication changes at LifePoint, which is part of what you do for us, we've seen it all, and it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was back in the day, it was Palm Pilot.
Right. I remember, that's a funny story that when I first met you and came on staff at LifePoint, you had a Palm Pilot phone, and I was so envious.
Well, it was the Palm Pilot, I can't remember, Palm Spring.
Handspring, yeah.
Handspring color. So it was the color
one, yeah.
So you had to use the stylus.
Yeah.
But on the top, it was like an adapter, and I bought the phone adapter.
Right.
So your Palm Pilot became your phone.
Yeah.
And so all your contacts and all, which were, Minecraft pixelated Roblox, looking graphics, and you could insert.
But for the time, it was amazing.
Oh yeah,
it was amazing.
Yeah.
But don't you think, like, speaking of church communication, did it seem easier back then because there was only a couple of methods? Like, you could email people, and you could call them on the phone.
Well, I think...
Or the website. Or you could have a website. There's no YouTube.
Not even... I mean, in the very, kind of... Website was... I mean, maybe in LifePoint's existence, but when I even think about churches before that, the existence of websites were obviously foreign, and it was always... even when we started LifePoint, we started it, and even in my earliest design days, it was all direct mail. Was the form of communication.
Okay, so if we were to list out, let's just, for the fun of it, let's list out, back at the beginning of LifePoint, what were the ways you could communicate with the church?
Yeah.
Bulletin on Sunday morning.
Announcements
from the stage.
Right. Direct mail card.
Expensive, very expensive to do, because you're sending out 10,000 pieces of mail.
You're basically saturating this zip code.
Yeah.
I want to go to 32750 and saturate all those houses, or 32773, whatever. And you would saturate that area. You'd be like, hello, dear neighbors.
Right.
We are LifePoint.
Which, when LifePoint started out, that was one of the main ways we got in touch with people. It's interesting because we'll come back to this, but we don't send a lot of mail out anymore.
No.
It doesn't seem as effective. So you had website, bulletin, mailer. You could do emails. People did email, obviously.
Yeah.
Reasonably effective. Or are you ready for this? The phone tree. Phone tree.
Yeah.
Where
I don't know if we officially had that
I think
at LifePoint, but
yeah,
in general, that time frame had the phone
tree. A lot
of
churches would do, like if you called, Jim Smith called, the Brown family, and somebody from the Brown family called the Jones family.
Right.
And then, so if it broke, then that was where the communication stopped.
Yeah.
But so what we're looking at,
or somebody left the church, your communication
because
your breakdown was like, the Smiths left. Great.
That would be challenging because if you didn't know a family left, then basically the phone tree only goes that far.
Well, it felt like probably those days families communicated more or better.
Yeah, that's probably
whether
true.
They were leaving or not. That was a thing to be like, I removed my membership from you.
Yes,
and
that's true.
So it felt like it was.
Well, and it must have been, I can think it must have been easier to communicate with church people because there was a lot less information flying around. Think about it. Without social media, you would have to go to get information. It didn't just flood into your sort of brain synapses every time you opened your phone, because your phone was like...
You're bombarded with...
Yeah. And I think that's the challenge that we're kind of facing, and one of the reasons why we're trying to make some changes or trying to make some changes is we're trying to find the most effective way to communicate to our people, not just about events and things that are happening, but figuring out how we can connect with people so that we can serve their needs and minister to them, and then allow the church family to also do that. And we've made some additions in the last year, like with the Church Center app and things like that. But let's get into what are the big changes that are coming. This podcast is going to be coming out last week of May. At the end of May, something significant's happening in terms of communication.
Yeah. So we're basically going to transition from our physical weekly bulletin, or the weekly, as you guys coined it, but it became the weekly bulletin, and then now it's just the bulletin.
The thing that you receive, the piece of paper that you receive on the way in the door.
Sunday morning, my in-laws hand out the bulletin.
Steve and Ann, by the way.
And others.
But they're really like... They're MVPs of the front door, just the friendliest, happiest people. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, no.
So that bulletin is going away.
It's the death of the bulletin.
You've heard it here first. No more. By the way, they got really expensive.
Well,
to print those.
Yeah, that's part of the equation, not fully the equation, but I think that's part of it. Yeah, all the cost of printing, our printing costs went up. Everyone's printing costs went up, but so we used to have a steal of a deal. Now it's like, this is it's painful.
Yeah, inflation. I think when we started, here's the sad part about it. You're a really talented graphic designer.
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you for it. And the bulletins look amazing. They're like full color, and you walk in, you go, wow, this is really, really nice. But they almost cost $1 a piece to print now. They didn't always. When we were printing them, they were like 22 cents a piece or something.
No, it was ridiculous. So now the cost is prohibitive.
Inflation.
Yeah,
it's bad. We had a special deal, and they got rid of those business deals, and the next thing you know, we're like, these are kind of expensive to print.
Yeah.
And then, people just wad them up and throw them.
And we still need printed material. We're still going to obviously, use that source to print other things, posters and miscellaneous things. But, and all of that has gone up too. But the reality is we can remove that. Yeah. And so we can spend our money wisely in those other areas that we need them to be, print material.
How many people do you think really paid attention to the bulletin anyway, though? Right?
I don't know. I mean... We print more and more because of just growth, naturally. Yeah. We started out probably printing 40, then we moved to 50, and then we moved to 60, because not every person gets it.
So not everyone, one per family,
it's
basically.
Kind of one per family. Every once in a while, one family will be like, no, we all want one. they'll take one. But then they're left. A lot of times they're left to die on the floor of the sanctuary.
And you just think like, man, that's so expensive. We should frame that. I think this is my take on it. And if you're, listening to this podcast, I would say, put something in the comments if you disagree. But mostly for new families, that's really where the bulletin that you get on the way in, that kind of pays off, because number one, you don't want to make eye contact with people around you. So you kind of look at this bulletin. It's got some information about the church, what we believe, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe the section that has the stats for everybody else is interested. Like if you've been going to the church for years, you open that up. I just want to see how many people were here last week. What's our offering? But for the most part, because we know that, because a lot of people will say, so when is that family event again? And you're like, it's been in the bulletin for the last 4 weeks.
This is to all those who texted me or called me to ask me when the thing was. It's in the bulletin.
Actually, have you
for
seen,
like 4 weeks?
I've seen a T-shirt, and it says something like, "It's been in the bulletin for the last 3 weeks."
We should have. Maybe we can. I don't know. Resurrect
but the
those
point
without
is,
a bulletin.
Communication's changing, and I think that format of the bulletin not only is it not as needed, it's just too expensive to continue. So we're laying the bulletin to rest,
and maybe someday in 50 years from now, they'll be like, "Hey, let's do something new.
It'll be retro.
It'll be retro. Let's bring back the bulletin."
Yeah, maybe.
And people will be like, "A bulletin? Like as in a board? Or no, it's a little piece of paper that you get every week." What?
Probably that. Yeah, everything is cyclical. Yeah. But now here's the most important thing. What are we replacing the bulletin with?
Yes.
Where do you get the information?
Telepathic connection to your brain.
Yes.
Is what we're
going to implant a chip into everybody's head.
Yes. That's April 1st. We're introducing that. No, I think we'll move to obviously the digital side of that. Yeah. So we've been moving everyone to Church Center app.
Yeah.
And the beauty is we've seen success in all of a sudden people going, "Oh yeah, I've got that already," or it's downloaded.
Yeah.
I think we were forced a little bit into that with certain communication during COVID. Quite honestly.
Yeah.
Like there's some really bad things that happened, and then there's some things that kind of as a side effect, like even giving, we kind of had to move. Like, we gotta do this quickly and make sure everybody's on the same page. So the beauty is it's right there in your fingertips. Social media and technology can be a blessing or a curse.
Oh, for sure. I always say like COVID was in a, it's like this. God uses every scenario, or he can use every scenario for his glory, especially if we're sort of attuned to it. And I think all of a sudden COVID launched the video ministry of hundreds of thousands of churches like simultaneously who found themselves like having to do it. Thankfully, we had it already. But like to your point, suddenly it became necessary to use online giving but also super convenient. And the Church Center app, if people don't know about it, just give a quick little overview on like sort of where you can get it and what it does. Because some people might not. Although I think most of our people are pretty good with it. But what is it?
It came out of, there's an organization called Planning Center that they basically have this database system. And the beauty is they've connected all these other things.
Connected everything.
And so now it's this robust, and might I say, if there's anybody besides our church looking for something, I would highly recommend Planning Center as your system.
Yeah, hold on. I want to say one thing real quick. Agreed, because Planning Center, we use it, and PushPay called me this week. Now, PushPay is a competitor.
Yeah.
And we used to use PushPay.
Yeah.
And they do some of the same things. And he was like, "Hey, we want to offer you this special discount." Guys, like, I got to be honest with you, Planning Center they're hitting it out of the park.
Yeah. Well, and the beauty, again, not to sell you somebody else, but they listen to feedback.
Yeah.
Like I have given feedback, and others, not just me, but others. And next thing you know, there's like these little tweaks and changes and things that are added, and they value the feedback.
Yeah.
They're listening. And so then they add to it.
It works good. It looks good.
Yeah.
It's very functional.
It's user-friendly. I think that's part of communication. Is it functionally, are you, whatever form it comes in, newspaper, magazine, bulletin, digital, it has to kind of be appealing. It's got to be easy. It's got to be like any design. You want to make sure you're pointing towards what's important on the page or on the media.
That's where your sort of eye comes in, because you can look at a design and does it make sense to the person who's going to see it for the first time. Church Center app is great because you just go to your app store, whether you're on Android or iPhone. You look for Church Center, and then the very first thing, once you download it, it's basically going to help you find our church. So as long as your location settings are turned on, which I think it even has a feature to make sure they are, you'll see LifePoint, and then you go boom, and then from that point on,
LifePoint
it's
Church
basically
in Longwood, Florida.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. If
your locations
are on, you'll see it.
Yeah,
But anyway, make sure you don't do another LifePoint. There's a bunch.
Yeah,
but once you do choose that, basically it becomes the LifePoint Church app.
Right.
It's called Church Center, but it's only us. And you can check out all the events. You can listen to sermons. You can register for groups. You can belong to do groups. You can do giving. And most importantly, now you'll be able to get the bulletin. The online bulletin will be on the Church Center app. So when people come in, you don't get the piece of paper. You can still say hi to Steve and Ann. Yeah, but they won't have anything to hand you.
Maybe they just hold the QR code.
Hold the QR code
that you can scan when you walk in. The idea is that it would be a digital, in essence, bulletin. It was basically that week, week, that you would see that at any time. So it could be if you're physically in the building, or if you're not here, you're still going to know what's going on. If you're not, because some people watch out of state, they could be a part of something. You just, case in point, you had a family that used to watch online, and now they're moving in the area,
right?
To kind of be a part of LifePoint because they already felt like family. So
I think it's a good point. It's like, and that's the other thing that sort of, maybe COVID did this, or maybe it's just our culture, but it's great when people come to church on Sunday as a group. We love that. I think that's the best way to do church, but not everybody has that ability. Right. So they'll watch on a Monday or a Tuesday because maybe they had to work on Sunday. Same thing. They wouldn't have been able to get the bulletin if they didn't show up, but now they do. They have all the access. And the better part of it is everything in there is sort of clickable. So if you see like an announcement for some event, you can just hit the button and then boom, you're right there to register for the event or
all
whatever.
The things that we would tell you about events have its own button for events.
Yeah.
So you can immediately go right to there.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean we won't necessarily highlight something from the stage. We still may say, XYZ is coming up. And so be aware of that, or registration is started, whatever. And that way you could just kind of go right to your app.
Although we are trying to be more aware of just sort of blathering on about announcements. Like this is a new, you know what I mean? You go to a church and like, here's 7 announcements and only one of them applies to me. We're trying to, in each week in our staff meeting, we're like, okay, is this really stage time worthy? Because why? Well, because there's a lot of other ways to get it, especially if you're using the Church Center.
We don't want all of our announcements to be, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. I don't need to listen to it. So next time you hear the announcements, you're like, this doesn't pertain to me. So we're trying to make sure it reaches the biggest mass of sorts of people. Now that doesn't mean we won't highlight things that are starting or
there's always
in things in between there. But I think it's communication-wise, in the communication wheelhouse, that's helpful. So there's some things that will be obviously in the Church Center app that weekly they'll be able to see some of the numbers, what's being, the sermon that morning, that kind of thing. But we also we still have the Connect card. That's a physical piece of paper.
We have a new Connect card. I see you brought a printout.
Yeah, and we can show it probably digitally.
Yeah.
I'll give you the
on
digital
the podcast.
One. On
We're cutting to it right now.
Right. There it is. Ring. No, not that one. That one. Okay. So it's got the Connect card. It'll be a little bit taller, so it kind of sticks out of behind the chair. But that's important so that guests can. It's easy to grab. There's still something that they can potentially.
Well,
take.
If you're a first-time guest, you don't have the Church Center app most likely, and the chances are you aren't going to download it because you're checking the church out. Right. So we still need some physical thing that we can say, hey, leave us your name, your number. And you can communicate with us. And then some of the information that was sort of static on the bulletin that you would need to know. It's on the backside now of the...
Yeah, so some of the things that say about guests and things like, we're just informing people, well, we have a worship service. It usually lasts about this long. We have offering time. We do communion. By the way, there's kids ministry.
Yeah.
Because some families are like, I don't know what to do with my kids. So they can kind of see that information and go, oh, they've got kids ministry. I can put the kids in now, or family, or adults, and there's groups. I'll just need to go to the website. So there's a little bit of basic, non-changeable, static information that kind of lives there on the back of the Connect card, so that kind of marries the two, so that you've got that still that piece that they can.
I think, somebody might ask, like, why are you sharing this information? Who cares? I think the important thing to take away from this is there's two things. One is we want to what's the word I want to use? We want to be able to meet the needs of sort of the constantly changing way that people communicate, right? I mean, like, there was a time when churches were in operation and there wasn't phones, right? So I don't know what they were doing back then, carrier pigeon or something. And then, so every step of the way, and now this is another one of those where we're sort of going more digital. And I know there are probably some people like, I don't want to do. So we want to meet the needs. We want to be relevant that way. And then the second thing, though, and this is probably the more important thing, is we really want to be able to have those lines out there to our congregation, because this is how we minister to the congregation. This is how we find out what their needs are and what we're offering to help meet those needs. And that's really the most important thing. This isn't just about like, well, how do we get people to this event? In the Church Center app, you can do prayer requests.
Right. You
can look for those Bible studies that are important to you, those events that are going to meet some of those needs, and so that's a big part of why we're doing this. This is a ministry thing.
Well, and you've got it with you. So
anywhere you are
now, you're at your neighbor's house, and instead of going, well, let me show you the weekly,
right?
Well,
that's true. If you're talking to somebody, and go, oh, we got this thing going on at my church. Let me show you.
Yeah. Boom. You can pull out your app. It's kind of like even the communications of wearing LifePoint swag and the shirts.
Yeah.
Like people are, hey, what's that about?
Yeah.
We
should give a plug to shoplifepoint.com.
Shoplifepoint.com.
We got a lot of new stuff on there.
Yeah.
Which is fun. A lot of fun stuff.
We put family camp stuff on there. There's some fun stuff. Not everyone went to family camp, but a good amount of people did. So there's some fun stuff there. Mm-hmm. Building strong families, some Fuse kids and Merge FCA stuff. There'll be updated stuff. So there's lots of things that we're continually adding. So we'll have slides in our speaking of communications that are running on Sunday morning as well as on social media. That we'll
have to make sure there's a link from Church Center bulletin straight to the store. And then, by the way, what?
I've already.
You already did it.
Yeah.
Oh, good job. Yeah. By the way, now I forgot what I was going to say.
By the way,
I had a whole point about something. Oh, I know.
Your second point.
Did I have a second point?
You said 2 points, but
did I do both?
I don't know.
That's a pastor thing I do. So there's 3 reasons why I thought I did the second point. I'm going to go back.
You could have. We'll watch it.
One of the things I was going to ask is, does it make your job easier or harder, sort of switching the design from the paper print to the digital? Does it save you time? I mean, it saves us money. Does it save time?
I think it saves money. There's a potential that, I think the other communications that would change potentially is, and we're still fleshing or fleshing?
I think it's fleshing it out.
Fleshing it out?
Yeah. You can flush it out. That's a different podcast.
That's a different podcast. The MailChimp. So there's an e-news that takes place.
Email, right.
So the email so I do the e-news, then there's the bulletin, then there's, and then there's all these, slides for different announcements that go on, social media. Then there's different ones that go on Sunday morning. And so some of that you kind of combine. So the e-news will most likely be incorporated into that weekly update on the app. Yeah. So now we push out, when you receive a text and you go to the e-news, there's no necessarily a reason for me to do the e-news when it's a digital format already in the phone on your Church Center
app. So you're
app.
saying essentially it saves some time because we would have we've got to print this and we got to push this out via an email on Thursday, and then we've got to put this on social media, and it's we can just put this in one spot.
And there has been times when the bulletins weren't picked up on a Sunday morning.
Well, that won't happen again because they'll be digital.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. That's happened a couple of times.
Yes.
Yeah.
At times I have printed you as well.
Yeah.
We've printed black and white ones and we're like,
if only Office Depot was open at 9 a.m.
Yes.
Instead of 10 a.m. Because if we forget to pick them up.
Office Depot opening on Sundays at 9 a.m.
We could move our church service to 10:30, which would give us time to get the bullet. Now, it'd be easier just to do them digitally. Yeah. So anyway, I'm excited about it, even though I was at first more hesitant because I want to make sure that first time people feel like they're welcome. Right. But I like this plan, which is, the print bulletin is going away. The bulletin will turn into this digital thing that you can find on the Church Center app. And we're just telling everybody now anyway, Church Center app. That's the best way to communicate with us.
Everything of communication, it is just so much better with it if you're using it wisely.
And it's free.
Yeah.
It's free to us and it's free to them.
That app part is free for us to use. And so the other part of that is we, a side note, we even use it for communicating for our kids ministry. So we have 40 volunteers that we manage.
Yeah.
And when they don't, when a volunteer, they have blockout dates, you can, on your Church Center app, boom, block out. I'm going to be out of town. I can't be here that Sunday. But if they fail to, there's now a way to, hey, I'm not going to be here this Sunday. They go right into the Church Center app, into the group area, say, I can't tell you how many, probably 5 or 6, this, past couple months, where somebody will write in and say, hey, I need somebody for this Sunday. And it's 40 people now jump to, I got it. Yeah. I got you covered. I can swap with you. So it's a beautiful communication tool, not just for us pushing, to the congregation, but the congregation relationally, they're communicating to each other. Yeah. And it's far better than all of a sudden now I'm getting texts and now I'm texting out 40 people.
Yeah. That's just even another, we could almost do a podcast on how to use the Church Center app to its fullest. But there's so many things, again, we're not making any money by promoting it. Oh, that's what my other point was going to be. It was about the merchandise. Thank you. We only make $1 profit on each of those things. Yeah. So what we're trying to make, it's not that we're trying to make money off that. We just want people to have some of the merch to represent the church that they're a part of. We make $1 just to help us cover the cost of having the site.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that was my point on that I forgot, that I just remembered.
You did. I'm impressed.
That's a good opportunity to close. Anyway, well, thank you for this. I'm looking forward to it. The first new digital bulletin comes out the first week in June.
So
the first week in June,
28th, which is Grad Sunday.
Yes.
And Vision
Night.
Update Night is also the death of the bulletin.
Play sad funeral music here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Thanks for being with us on the podcast.
Yep.
I don't know what to say next.